Listen to the All in My Head podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Please, allow me to show you something.
Welcome back to the All in My Head podcast, where thoughts run wild and nothing's off limits. I'm Jenny, and I am your host, and this is episode 13, and it is called Midlife Magic, Thriving in Your 50s and Beyond. And that's what we're going to talk about, just about growing up and growing into everything you want to be. And I want to start with talking about how much my perspective has changed on so many things. Let's start with saying that, but most especially on getting older. And as I get older, how I reflect on what I used to think, again, on so many things as a teen and as a child, and how drastically that changed for me. I think when I look back, and I've been journaling a lot about my childhood and my young adulthood and teenage years, and writing a lot about those times and kind of my perspective of things then, and doing a lot of inner child work. We've talked about that. But when I look back and I think about what I thought about people who were 50 and older as a teenager or even preteen, I honestly, and this is not to be disrespectful, this was a child's perspective, I just thought that people in their 50s were old. You know, I could see myself as an older person, but I also just felt like 50 was old. My parents in particular were older parents, and they had my youngest sister when they were in their 40s. So I, going into, like 10, 11, 12, had parents who were in their 50s. And most all of their friends were also in their 50s. So I look at that and I look back on that and I think, I was always around older people for the most part within my family structure and my parents' friends. And, that was old back then. I mean, not most, but a lot of people now are having kids in their 40s and even older. And to each his own. That was how my parents' family transpired. But I look back and I was just like, wow, that's old. And again, even though I could see myself as an older adult or growing into that, I still thought that 50 was old. I thought that was a time where you're slowing down in life and you're kind of done dreaming or starting new things. Then in my 20s and 30s, where, all of that was starting to come closer in, I still was kind of like, okay, I'm living my life, I'm raising my kids, but I also still thought like, wow, in my 50s, that's kind of going to be a wrap. I had my kids young, and, by the time I was in my 40s, my youngest was kind of getting ready to go off into college. So again, I thought, well, that's kind of it. I honestly didn't think about any kind of reinventing or stepping into any new ways of being in my 50s. I just thought this is a time to slow down, to settle down, to kind of pause and maybe even start a decline, which is so sad to think about. I honestly look back and think, wow, I thought that 50 was old. And even when I talked to my husband, Dan, and I had this conversation with my youngest son recently, I said to Dan, could you picture yourself as a teenager or even in your 20s, as a 50-year-old man or 54-year-old man? He was very much the adrenaline junkie. He didn't think about longevity in life. He was definitely like in the thought process back then as YOLO, before there was even a YOLO, right? You only live once. So he was about living in the moment and not necessarily for a long time. So he was like, I didn't even know that I would be here in my 50s, to be quite honest with you. I was young and reckless, and that was fine. I wanted to live in the moment. So both of us, in different ways, saw 50 as being old and maybe not necessarily being active and all the things now that you see people doing and talking about. And I spent those 20s and 30s and, like I said, into my 40s raising my kids. I was a wife. I was an educator, and that was my identity. And I thought that that was what I would always be. That was going to be my title and label and being. Of course, I'm still a mom. I have 3 adult sons, and, mothering doesn't end when your kids grow up. It just morphs into a new way of parenting. And, I'm a Lala now, grandma of 4. And when I was young, I just saw grandmas as being old. I didn't necessarily have my grandparents in my life every day, but the ones that I did see, and when we did, talk about them, or my one grandmother who lived closer, they were just old to me. And I thought, that's what grandmas look like. And even back then, think about the show The Golden Girls. They were in their 50s. And that's honestly wild to think about now, because 50s look so different in 2025. And those were my images of being 50, but just living in a much more muted life and a much more subdued life. And I've said this in episodes past, and in my season of joy, and in my season of yes, and reclaiming your joy, that my perspective drastically changed once I worked through the things that were holding me back. Aging has a funny way of making you stop and take stock in where you are at that moment and what you've done, and even what you still want to do, because time is ramping up, or it feels like time is moving quicker. I did that. I was able to kind of sit back and take stock in what I was doing in my life and what I still wanted to do. I felt like this was a time kind of for my second act, kind of a time where I reinvented myself. My proudest accomplishments are and always will be raising my 3 sons to be wonderful humans. That is not to say that they're not flawed humans. We all are flawed humans. But those 3 boys are my greatest accomplishments. And I also loved being an educator and helping youth grow and step into their purposes. So as I came into my 40s, I started looking around at time and what I still wanted to do. And I started to tap into the areas that I had wanted to learn more about. And I talked about this in Jesus, Buddha, and Crystals, that episode, where I started looking differently at spirituality and my practices and reshaping how that looked for me in my life now. In my 50s, that's when I started my season of yes. And I began in the last 2 years to really step into the things that make me happy and fulfill me in a space that I had never tapped into before. I did all my writing very much for myself and secretively, and I'd never shared that with people. But my 50s looks so different than I ever envisioned them to be as a teenager. I certainly don't look at 50 as old. I definitely don't think that I'm on a decline in any way. I mean, I have started new career paths and creative ventures that I had dreamed about back then, but never thought I would do. I'm, like I said, actively writing and editing my first book, and I hope that's going to be published in a few months. I mean, it is going to be published in a few months. And I created this wonderful podcast that I get to host. I started my own publishing company. I started a writers club for fellow writers. And I've been taking classes that are non-traditional, no math. Nobody wants me doing math anyway, but I just wanted to step into and try things that were fun. And I even created my own course for people over 50 and just finished teaching that for this spring session. And I'm in the process of creating a second part to this course in a more advanced version. And that was at the encouragement of the people who were in my class who signed up. And after that class was over, they just kind of came to me and said, this was more than I thought it was going to be. I learned so much more. I'm so grateful that you're doing it. And please do a second version, a more advanced version of this course. And again, these were all things that I thought I would like to do at some point. And not even. The teaching aspect came just from taking a course last fall and hearing feedback from people saying, maybe you can teach this course. Go sign up, go do it and create it and make it happen. And so I'm stepping into things that I couldn't even have envisioned. And there's so many more exciting things that I have planned in this new season of life. But like I said, I didn't even think that I was going to be doing some of these things. And if it wasn't for the encouragement of people that I met going to these classes and being out in the community in a different way, I wouldn't even be stepping into these exciting ventures. I think that that's what it's about. Like, in talking with this group who are all over 50, some are in their 60s, some are in their 70s, we are in this season of life that is about creating the lives that make us happy. It's about spending time with people that make us happy and stepping into new, beautiful journeys that maybe we never thought we would. You know, maybe we dreamed about it. It was a distant dream or one that we never thought would come into fruition. But it's about building and creating this life of happiness in a very different way. It's not to say that my young adulthood was not happy. I mean, I raised my kids. I got to be an educator. I got to do these amazing things. But now it's not about necessarily supporting my family and doing a job that I have to do every day and making it work and punching a clock every day. It's about making the life that you've always wanted, making 50 fabulous. This woman who was in my course talked about mindset and how mindset and the words that you use create your reality, but it also creates how you feel about a situation. Instead of saying, I have to do these things, and I talked about that in a previous episode, just changing have to I get to. You know, how lucky that we at 50, 60, 70 get to live this life. And once we shift that mindset, how much life becomes better and becomes more fulfilled. I mean, like I said, I'm not the 50-year-old that I pictured when I was a teen. I mean, I don't look like what I thought I would look like at 50. I don't feel like her. And I'm definitely not in this stagnant life that I thought 50 would be. You know, I'm feeling good. I'm doing things that I love. I'm starting new adventures. And I'm stepping into areas that I never would have before. My confidence has grown exponentially. And I think that's a big part of it. You know, as teens and as young adults, we're very unsure. We pour our happiness into other people and we build who we are around other people's opinions. And I'm not that person anymore. I'm very secure in who I am. And I get to meet amazing people and I feel more alive and present than I ever have. And I honestly don't see signs of slowing down. I mean, I said this in Softer Endings and Brighter Beginnings, that episode where I talked about kind of ending the year softly and being able to appreciate and also consider that even the softest, slowest days are productive. And I still welcome days that I get to practice hygge and have a lazy day that I don't have anything planned out, or I get to stay in my pajamas or sweats all day and binge a show, read a book, order takeout. I still love those kind of days, and we all need those days to pour into ourselves and to refill our cup. But I have so many opportunities that are coming my way that I see. I have opportunities that I'm sure are coming my way and I don't even know about because I've opened myself up to that. And I have adventures that I want to go on, fun experiences that I want to be a part of, and dreams that I still want to fulfill. And I have trips I want to take and memories that I want to make. And I truly just want to live every moment to its fullest and make every moment count. So for me, slowing down or being that 50-year-old that I thought I was going to be and slowing the pace of my life is just not an option anymore. I feel like I'm just getting started. We hear people talk about midlife crisis, or we have heard people in the past talk about that midlife as a crisis and as, that very stereotypical, the man who hit his midlife crisis and decided to buy a race car and change his hairstyle and date young women, or, that's such a stereotype. But we also talk about these midlife crises we have societally, where, women have sent their kids off to college and then their kids have gone on to their own lives and they don't know their worth or what they are supposed to do and what their identity is outside of being a mother and a wife. And, people hitting that midpoint where they're just like, well, how do I recapture that youth? How do I see myself and shape my identity outside of them? And, people have done crazy things, but, I think part of that was also trying to halt that aging process and to kind of freeze time. But I don't think we need to do that. I don't think it's about freezing time. So many people don't get that privilege of growing old. We need to look at the bright side of getting older and the privilege of growing older. We're wiser, we're more patient. We've learned from our experiences and we have this fountain of knowledge to utilize and to share. And that perspective and mindset are everything. So what if we embrace the term midlife magic? What if we looked at life at this midpoint for the magical moment that it is and for the magic that we can create in our lives in this second half, in this new season? If we shift the narrative of, I can't believe I'm getting old, to what a gift that I get to grow older. What a gift that I get to watch my children have their own families. What a gift that I get to be a grandparent to these beautiful beings that bring such light. What a gift that I get to become this wiser, more fulfilled being. What if we just changed that term and called it midlife magic? I mean, I personally can't wait to see where my life grows from here, where my life with my husband grows from here. I'm excited to start this new journey and step into the season with a more positive spirit and plans to follow my dreams, our dreams, and to pursue the things that I've put on hold. I want to try new things that I haven't done, and I want to meet new people. And that's hard for me because I get stuck in this. I like my little group of people. I like the few friends that I have, but most of my friends are in Connecticut still, and I don't live there anymore. So for me, getting out and meeting new people and exploring areas that I never have and growing these relationships in my 50s is exciting. It's something I didn't think I would do. If we just looked at life in our 50s as a starting point, how different this midlife would be. Like I said, getting older is a privilege many don't get to experience. And there isn't one way that we should all encounter this journey of getting older, but it's whatever we make it. Why not make it the most beautiful and amazing journey every second of every day that we're blessed to be a part of it? Why can't life begin at 50? Why can't 50 be the starting point for a new half of our life, a new chapter of our life? I mean, I know for me, it really is just beginning. I am meeting people, taking classes, teaching classes, stepping into my creative, exciting, and amazing journey. And I'm looking at all the things that are ahead of me, but also what I even wasn't sure that I wanted to step into, and saying, that's where I want to be. That's what I want to pursue. That's how I want to engage in the second half of life. I want to ramp it up in a different way. I want to stretch myself in ways that I never have before. And how exciting is that? I mean, I know that this season of my life is a beginning, and I am open to any and every opportunity that God and the universe bless me with. I know that even when I plan the things that I want to do, there's so much more happening behind the scenes, and that it's going to be bigger and better and greater than even I can imagine. So I know opening myself up to these opportunities is going to bring additional opportunities and additional ways and areas that I couldn't even imagine being a part of. The theme, and I spoke about this as well in my previous episodes, that I felt very deep in my heart and very cemented in my being for 2025 for my family has been thrive. That word just kept coming up over and over and over again. So for me and for my family, it was about thrive in 2025. And that's exactly what I'm doing. And they're all doing in their own ways. Thriving in 2025 and stepping into that fully and wholeheartedly and in the most unreserved way, I hope will open even more doors. And I hope that every year gets exponentially better for all of us. So there's so much uncertainty in the world. There's so much happening. And the one thing that we can control is our attitude in all of it, our mindset in all of it, and how we let that shape what and who we are and what and who we want to become. So let's just take that time as you're stepping into this season and this era of a new life, of a new chapter, of a new season of your life. Let's look at midlife and change how we look at it, how we talk about it, how we embrace it, and how we choose to let it unfold in our life. Even if you're not at that stage of life yet, even if you're not there yet, and you're even a far way from being a 50-year-old, start thinking about that now. Start thinking about changing and making those small changes in your life now about how you look at and think about and perceive what midlife looks like, is, or can be. You can start to shift that mindset now and embrace what is to come and benefit from people who you already know who are at this milestone of life. Stop and see the magic in it and just be open and receptive to the magic flowing into the season and into every aspect and area of your life. Do it. Go for it. Make beautiful changes in your life. Reinvent yourself at midlife. Have this be your second act, your best act. Midlife magic. That's what we're calling it from now on. Midlife magic, because life begins now. I want to thank you all for taking time out to listen to the All in My Head podcast. I appreciate each and every one of you for listening, for hearing my stories and taking whatever medicine you need from it. I truly do appreciate it. And I love to hear from you. So if you want to drop me some fan mail on Buzzsprout, please do so. Please download this episode, listen, share any tidbits of wisdom that you took from it with your friends. And again, let's take every moment and make it magic. Thanks again, and have the best and most beautiful day.